Hello, and thank you for joining us here on the program. I'm Wiyag Mofwegwe in for Zia Lukman. We continue our series with conversations centered on eliminating violence against girls and, of course, women. We started talking about all of the dynamics around the challenge and how that our society has evolved in recent history, and how that in itself puts a whole lot of work in front of society in terms of how the rights of women are protected, especially as it has to do with the issue of violence, which in recent times has been on the increase. I'm joined by the Country Director for Action Aid, Andrew Mamedu, to help us beat context and perspectives into this narrative. Thank you, Andrew, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much, Rui.
Great. So now we're having these UN 16 days of action. You want to give us clarity on that?
Okay, so thank you very much, Rui, for having me today. Thank you to viewers. 16 days of activism is 16 days set aside by the United Nations, by the world, to address the issue of violence against women. And it is the longest days of action in the calendar of the year for marking any event. So most events have 1 day, 2 days, but for issues of violence against women, to tell you how important, to tell you how deep-rooted the issue is, 16 days has been earmarked for dealing with the issue, for talking about it, for sensitizing the world, for sensitizing communities, families on the issues of violence against women and girls. So it's an important issue, and it's been running for years. So this year, Nigeria joined other nations of the world. And of course, my organization, Action Aid, we joined other organizations in the world in marking this year 16 days of activism.
Excellent. So let's bring it back. Bring it closer to home now, Nigeria in particular. How difficult or otherwise has it been selling this narrative to society in terms of how women and indeed girls should know their rights in this regard and protect them?
Okay, thank you very much. So when it comes to issues of rights, so you know that basic rights are fundamental rights that are associated to humans because you are a human, and these rights are inalienable. They are not separable. So you are a human because you have these rights, and you have this right because you are a human. So you cannot separate them. Right. So clearly, it has been it goes side by side. So a violation of one right also impedes on the other. So talking to citizens, talking to people about their rights, having them understand their rights on various issues, as issues of right to life, right to health, right to education, right to freedom of association, and all of that. So all of those put together, it's one package that citizens have to understand that they own. So when you talk about issues of violence against women and girls, a girl has a right to live, have a right to be free, have a right to say yes or no, have a right to, just the same way a man has a right. So he has a right to live a life of dignity. So if anything is threatening that right, it affects every other right. So clearly, it has been difficult pushing it down because of course, we have various reasons. It's from cultural issues, from the family background, from the religious background, misinterpretation of religion in some cases, to government policies and programs, to government implementing those policies that we even have on ground. And so in some ways, when you talk about sexual-based violence, for instance, because sexual-based violence is attributed to sex, we don't want to talk about sex. We feel that, sex is sensitive, it's not common in our culture, you shouldn't be mentioning the word. When you mention sex, so people grinch and all of that. But clearly, it then relates to people then being able to come up and report issues of sexual-based violence. When a lady is raped, the society expects that you keep quiet, because once you report that you have been sexually violated, you have been raped, it gets difficult for you to get a husband, because
you would have been stigmatized.
You've been stigmatized, you've been labeled, you've been stigmatized. So it becomes difficult for you to find a partner, find a husband. And so the family would rather tell you, keep quiet. And in several communities, the reward for rape is you marry the person. So you rape the person, you have to marry the person. So that's the reward for rape. So all of these are violence against women, against the rights of the women and girls. And that is why it's been difficult, and that is why the program we are running is trying to break down these barriers and ensure that we minimize or eliminate them at the end of the day.
Let's talk about the place of education. I mean, in this case, I'm not just talking about education within the four walls of a school. Education, the kind that enlightens the mind, the kind that brings illumination to the young girl or to the woman, whether they're married or they're single. Because most times we don't even know what the difference is. Some people would tell you until the man raises his hand, for those who are in marriage, for example, he has not abused me. So anything else he does aside hitting me physically is not an abuse. How do we create clarity?
Okay, I'm going to give two illustrations. So we even have what we call a spousal rape. So a spouse can rape
his wife.
His wife, yes. So we even have that, but that is an issue. And but that's not the example I want to give is we ran a program some years ago on education, transforming education for girls in Nigeria and Tanzania. And in that program, we did a quick study, baseline to find out where are we on issues of knowledge around issues of violence, what's the level of violence perpetrated in the school. And we discovered that we did the baseline, and we discovered that 40-something% reported issues of violence against girls, that they were suffering violence, the girls there. Then at the 2 years after the project, we did a midline. It was a 4-year project. We did a midline at the end of 2 years. And the number went to 60-something%. And this project was supposed to be dealing with issues of stopping or minimizing issues of violence against girls. What lesson did we learn? We then found out that people were going ahead to now talk more. They didn't understand that they could report. So even in the school, in our schools, we are not taught, so we are taught A, B, C, D, Y. That's cool, that's okay. But that sensitization around your rights, as a girl, as a woman, what happens? How do you report? What is violence? So what is violence? Violence is what it is. It is violence. There is the sexual violence, there is psychological violence, there is the sexual violence, there is the physical violence. So it's not only physical when you raise your hand. There's also the psychological violence. There is the sexual violence. So all of those fall under the gamut of violence. You cannot see a woman and hit her on the butt. That is violence.
Even when you say, when I did it, she didn't raise an eyebrow, she didn't complain.
No, you don't do that. So in workplaces or wherever you do it, they really don't give you permission. No means no. Even if she doesn't say no, she didn't ask for it. Right. So she might keep quiet because she doesn't know her right. In some places, in some climes, later in the year, 2, 3, 5 years, 10, 20 years time, the lady can decide to sue you for that singular action, and you go to jail. It's an offense.
But people say, why didn't she say that 20 years ago? Why did she have to wait?
Because she didn't know. She didn't know. And that because you didn't know then and you then knew later, because you have committed that offense, the person can go back and dig it up. And there is no time limit. There's no status bar on issues of that nature. So the person can go back, pick it up and raise it. So the more light is shone on this issue, the more people get aware, the more people speak up, and of course, the more the reduction we have in issues of violence against girls. But it's a big issue, and we need to take it as a country the way it is and deal with it.
No doubt about that. But let's also talk about young girls or even full-blown adult women who have been victims of violence of any kind. How do they get support? How do they get, if you like, some sort of rehabilitation?
Yeah, so right now, increasingly, you are having support centers being set up. You are having a lot of NGOs that are supporting such women. Because, first of all, there are relationship between economic independence and violence. So the women are like, oh, if I report, what happens to me? What happens to my children? I might be separated from my family. I don't have, the husband is the one that takes care of her bill. She's not working. There's no economic empowerment for her. So that ties her down. Then she begins to take all the form of abuse and violence that is melted on her. But clearly, if she knows that there are organizations that will take her or put her in support centers where she is able to, the economic situation is being dealt with, to be covered, and they set her up in business, then she will have the mind to be able to report such incidents in the future. But clearly, it is not an excuse. But women should know that, look us, cry for help. There are organizations, and actually we are funding a couple of other organizations, over 100 organizations across the country that are doing similar things, setting up centers that are providing support for such women, and even taking up cases in the courts against such perpetrators of violence at the end of the day.
There's this very hard nut to crack with regards to violence against women, incest. I know it's the elephant in the room. we are, for the most part, not comfortable having that conversation because for obvious reasons, it's a hard nut to crack. How is society dealing with that now in light of these 16 days of action and going forward?
That is why, for us, it starts from family level. Very clear, family up to federal government. So we're not just saying local government, state. No. We know that. So from family, the conversation we are having now, we have village heads and all that are there. So we have family members. So the family have to invest. So the team is Unite, Invest to End Violence Against Women. That's the thing for the year. So families also have to invest. We as family, we have to invest in to our children to understand what issues of violence is, what incest is. Some girls, like we all know, do not know, oh, come and sit down on uncle's lap. Don't sit down on any uncle's lap. That is wrong. It is wrong. So if it happens, you teach your daughter, you teach your son to understand what it is and to speak up when it happens. So incest at the family, it starts from the family awareness to the children and understanding, and also the openness of the family to speak up. People, again, women are afraid to report it because it's seen as a taboo. How can you report that, for instance, the worst case, like a father is sleeping with a daughter? What? That is a taboo. Who is going to hear that? But people should be sensitive enough. People should know that it has started, it might not stop, and even if it stops, it's an offense against that child, that girl. You have ruined her life forever. But how do you get it better? How do you make sure she gets psychosocial support? How do you make sure she gets all kinds of support that she requires to grow up as a normal human being? Because such persons will grow up hating men, hating sex, hating themselves, not lacking self-confidence. The whole thing goes around beyond just the issue of me reporting. It's not about just that child. And of course, that woman, it could also affect her family she's going to have in future. So that is why people need to understand it. And of course, so that's at family level. At the community level, the village head, the traditional ruler, the churches, the mosque, they need to talk about it. Let's speak about it. It doesn't have to be an elephant in the room. Let's unveil it. Let's open it up and speak about it. Then, of course, we go to the local government, state government, and federal government. The regulations, the policy. The police should stop asking questions that are difficult to answer. Make it, once a survivor comes, listen to them. Possibly let a woman attend to them. Listen to them. Don't make, what did he wear? How did he do it? Those are, you're making them relive the experience again. So that way it's better, it's easier for us to deal with the situation, and we then start talking about it. And make example of people that are reported. So if you make an example and people have confidence in the law, the judicial process, then people will then come and keep reporting. It just keeps getting better for us. And that's why we are seeing lots of improvements in issues on reduction in the issue of violence against women. Because we're creating this space, social media is working, we're creating this space, making it easy for people to come report and take action. Beyond just reporting, take action that will minimize those issues in future.
Now let's paint a scenario real quick. A woman's husband dies, apparently she becomes a widow. But the man's family comes and says, well, you didn't have a child with our brother, so you are not eligible to inherit his estate, whatever that means. Is that also a form of violence in this context?
Yeah, it is. It is a violence, and it's perpetrated across, so it's cultural, all those are cultural practices. And of course, all we are advocating is we need to change those cultural practices.
But it's not as easy as it sounds.
Of course, it's not. But some of them, we're changing them. Some of them are changing. So you have places where...
What tools are we using?
Of course, advocacy. We are advocating, we are engaging, we're working with traditional rulers or traditional institutions. We're making them see the lights, and of course, some of them are. So we have one seated here or two seated here, and they understand that they're beginning to bring women into their council of elders or council of chiefs. So you have women now sitting on the council of chiefs. You have places where women can now inherit land where it never used to happen before. So those are beginning to change. So the case of, your husband dies, you don't have a child, then you are disinherited. So clearly, those are issues that are grassroots that we need to change. And again, this is where the states and federal government comes to play. If the federal government state government puts its weight behind it, it's easy to change. So, and federal government, state government recognizes that this is a challenge, this is an issue, and we need to deal with it. So we are male, female, we are equal. So if a man can inherit a land, a woman should be able to inherit property. So nobody says, oh, you are a man, you never had a child for the woman. So since the woman is dead, and even in some cases, even if the woman is the breadwinner, you still have that situation playing out. So clearly, it's something that has got to change. And our systems, our culture, our value system, that's where we need to tackle it from that traditional level. And state government, the federal government needs to put its weight behind it for us to achieve it.
Andrew Mamadou, Country Director, Action Aid. I want to say a big thank you to you.
Thank you very much
for sharing your insights with us today. And that's what we'll leave it on the program. Everyone, thank you for watching. I'm Uyag Mofwegwe. Enjoy the rest of your day.